Hello software world, that's Medhat Sabry again from Techstamina. In this video, my intention is to talk to you about actually one of the hotspots as I see it in project management, actually in modern project management. And this is the difficult customer. You will find an article, a series of articles, actually 3 articles at techstamina.com in the project section about the subject. In this video, I'm going to summarize the first article of the 3, in which we'll try together to put our hands on a good definition, good understanding for the customer in general and the software customer in particular, and more detailed picture on the customer of today, the beginnings of the 21st century. This is the baseline actually to understand the phenomena, because we all suffer it, I know, and don't bluff. Everyone suffers that at some projects in some point in time when the customer starts to represent one of the hazards or some kind of a profound risk due to some behavior, one behavior or another on our projects. So let's start by defining the customer. First of all, Peter Drucker, a business and management legend in the second half of the 20th century actually, defines the customer as the main and sole objective of any business process, and that customer satisfaction is actually the highest target for any sort of business that you are running. From that definition we understand, and we all know of course, but we have to recall that from time to time, is the fact that the customer is the one who is keeping the market up, and the customer is the one who pays our salaries. And that is very important for us to try actually to toughen up a little bit in front of this phenomena, the difficult customer, and try to invent some tactics together in order to lessen its effect on the success of our projects. Let's get down to business now. Let's define the common characteristics for the software clientele. Clientele is a word that describes or defines a community of customers. So when I say the software clientele, I mean the community of customers, consumers of software. Another small difference between the two words, let me mention that very quickly here, is between the customer and the client. Clients are people whom you serve not necessarily for economical or financial reasons. Customers are people who pay. So this is the difference. However, we are going to use the two words like anybody else does in the literature. We are using them interchangeably. Back again to the main subject. What are the characteristics of the software clientele, particularly in that particular era we are witnessing right now, which I call the era of business as unusual, the beginning of a new century with all the transformations in it. So let's look at the market and try to see or understand what happened in it, and how that actually affected the character of the software customer in that transitional era between the two centuries, or the beginning of the century now. First of all, number one factor is competition, the fierce competition. And the fierce competition is augmented in the software business in particular by a few factors. Number one is the new movements of low-cost computing models. On top of all is the open source movement, where you can find an application serving almost any organizational need for free or for a minimum cost actually. This is one thing, and the clouding on the other side, which is providing platforms and applications, software as a service for fractional cost relative to what we had before. Coupled with that, of course, is the number of newcomers in the market of software developing companies and software service providers. What does that represent to the customer? Of course, the customer, as a result of that, starts to get more self-conscious. And self-conscious means more demanding. There's a lot of varieties to choose from, and demanding sometimes escalates to become over demanding. And this is the point at which a customer starts to be a source of hazard on your project. So our customers at the end are demanding, more demanding than ever before, and they tend even sometimes to become over demanding. The second factor that actually came to play with the beginning of the 21st century, or the third millennium, is change. And by change, I mean what happened at the beginning of the first decade of this millennium. In 2009, we have witnessed, and even a little bit before that, international economy has witnessed a financial crisis. And ever since, there was a lot of change in economies, even political systems, unrest, even wars. And that created a new situation in the international economy. A lot of legislations have been changed, a lot of procedures have been also revised. So there was always a change, there was always a need for change. This is one thing. On the other hand, if there is not a change, there is something that happened in the business mood of the customers, what I call the business mood of the customers. Either there is a change or they are expecting a change. So that reflects very much on the nature of the customer, who is tending very much to change requirements more than he used to do ever before. So the third characteristic of our software clientele, and we have to give our customers some excuse actually about that, is that they are reluctant. Let's ask ourselves why. Why should we give them some excuse, and what should we do to overcome this? For one reason, software is a change in the way you are doing things, and people hate change, right? I think that's right. We all hate change. So either you are starting from scratch, from the no system state and the building system for some company or some client, or if you are changing a system which they are actually used to for long, you are making a change. And they don't know what's going to be the case. That's why they have to show some reluctance. Another thing is that in the development process, the user is the main stakeholder, and he has responsibilities in that. And he has to provide data, attend meetings, and whatever the methodology you are working with, the involvement of the user is there. So he is spending time. That's burden, a new burden on users, or at least some key community of users. And nobody likes that very much. Very few people accept it from the beginning. That point is where actually we will start. From that point is where we will start to build our tactic to gain their confidence, our client confidence, and build on that in order to lessen the hazards or the risks that could come from his side. So this is about the common characteristics of the software clientele. Let me summarize at this point. We have an over-demanding customer in many cases, and we have a customer tending to change the requirements, and that's his right, because we are in many cases, most of the cases, we have to consider that his right. We are the ones who have to learn techniques to adapt. Thirdly, we have a reluctant customer, and that's quite natural because of the nature of the change inherent in the process of software development. So, what about the variances? There are a number of factors that we have to understand, depending on which the customers will vary. And this is very important in defining the ID or the characteristic of a specific customer when you go to serve him. Number one, actually, is what I have put here, is the business culture your customer is coming from. Because business cultures, sometimes specific businesses stamp the people in it with some characteristics. For instance, when you go to media, when you go to telecom, the pace is hectic. You have to understand that. When you go to manufacturing, it's it's more orderly, I mean. And you can talk to people in a much more comfortable fashion. When you go to education, you have to expect some people to giving you some lectures from time to time and have to listen. Secondly, it's the relation of the degree of understanding to technology. Technology. I don't expect people related to technology to be easier than people who don't know very much about technology. Because actually they tend in many cases to become more meticulous, more, let me say, putting their nose into details, and in that way there can be very easily source of risks. However, I can't generalize there, but this is just a finding that I have seen over time. So, relation to technology, you have to study that before you go to a customer and see how far he is involved in technology. And thirdly, and most importantly, previous experience with development projects. That affects very much a customer's reluctance to take new ventures with technology if he was not successful in the past, had history of failure with some vendor before you go and serve him. So depending on these three factors, you will find that people can vary, and I advise you very much to study the personality of your customer before you start your project with him, if you are a project manager or a scrum master or whatever, and I think that's going to help you very much avoid and build the right tactic to avoid any hazards that could come from the customer side on your project. So that ends my talk to you today. In this video, I took a little bit more than I expected. It seems that I got warmed up actually. So let me wrap up. In this video we have tried to understand together the character of the software clientele, of the software customer in the era we are living now, which I call business as unusual times. And this is our baseline to try together to build a tactic to know how to deal with customers, especially difficult customers, and lessen their impact on or the risk on our projects. I invite you very warmly to come to Techstamina.com, the project section, to read the 3-article series, and that video was actually the summary of the first article you will see there. I hope I'll see you in Techstamina in further videos too. Thank you very much for listening and for watching.